Before we begin, I always like to give a small introduction, not just to talk about astrology, but to talk about some points that are very connected to the topic of tonight. And as you can see it on the screen, the first point is known in Hebrew as Kol Yisrael Arevin Ze Lazeh. All Jews are responsible for each other, for one another, which means that if one notices a certain fault, a certain weakness in another individual, it does not just mean that you should ignore it and let him be what he is. If in any way you could help him or her, it is your responsibility. And you may have what it takes to help him or her. If you can't help, that's something else. But it just may be that you may have that characteristic that is necessary to calm one who is nervous or one who's very temperamental. You may just have it better than someone else, what it takes to tell the individual where he's wrong, or to direct him, or to show him how he can perfect himself. So Kol Yisrael Arevin Ze Lazeh is not just to criticize, to point out mitzvot that need to be performed, but it also concerns midot. It also concerns behavior, manners. Everyone who has any influence over a friend, a neighbor, a relative, should try his best to help him. Because a lot of people are not strong enough to help themselves. They can't come to terms with their strengths and weaknesses. They don't know how to. And that is what marriage, part of what marriage is all about, is that Hashem puts together those who need each other. And as long as it's a perfect and ideal match, they will complement each other. And that is an important point to keep in mind, B'ezrat Hashem, when we talk about soulmates, is that everyone has, hopefully, what the other one is lacking. And this is how they complement each other. So all Jews are responsible, Kol Yisrael Arevin Ze Lazeh, regardless of your relationship with the other individual. If you are a Jew, you need to take an interest in helping the other individual. If it's a big problem, a psychological problem, it may require expert help, professional help. But if there's anything that you can do, it may help. It may help really save a life. It may help somebody emotionally. Not just physically, emotionally. The next point is love yourself. Love your friend as thyself. Another very important point in the Torah, a mitzvah, to treat another as you would like to be treated yourself. Nobody can love somebody else as he loves himself. It's impossible. But to care about somebody else, to be concerned about the welfare of someone else, as much as you would want others to care about you. And that is not easy for people to do, because people are so involved in their own lives. Why should they take an interest in somebody else's life? Why should they care as much? Obviously, some people are less selfish than others. Some people have it in their nature to be kind, and it's easier for them to fulfill this mitzvah. But as I pointed out last week, the harder it is for you, the greater the reward will be if you made an effort to help somebody, even though it meant a lot of time, a lot of difficulties and obstacles to overcome. Love your friend as thyself means be just as concerned for someone else. And try to help. If you can help, try to help. Your deeds will attract others to you or distance you. As the rabbis tell us, Ma'asecha yikarvucha, Ma'asecha yerachakucha. Another important point to keep in mind. I included this one here is because from time to time you will notice that certain individuals have terrible midot. And it doesn't really have to do with one particular sign. Remember, all 12 are equal. All 12 have something good and something weak. But some have terrible weaknesses. Does everybody here know what the word despot means? A despot is a very not nice person. How would you characterize a despot person? Dave, would you have another way of describing him? In terms that everybody here can understand?
Someone who's despicable, not liked,
very imposing, perhaps. Tyrant. Yeah. He's a despot. He thinks more of himself than of others. Right? Rabbis tell us, Ma'asecha yikarvucha, Ma'asecha yerachakucha. Just so you should know that if people like you, or people do not like you, it has a lot to do with your ma'asim, with your deeds. You are to blame. We're not talking about somebody that has money and everybody wants his money. Not that kind of liking. If people really like you, people do not like you, it may be because you're doing something wrong or something right. It has a lot to do with one's deeds. In other words, regardless of what an individual is, regardless of his mazal, the deeds, his behavior, ben adam lechavero, between himself and others, will determine a lot his relationship, the success or the failure of his relationship at home or with others, at work. Ma'asecha, your deeds. Number 4, good manners and ethics come before Torah. You may recognize this, derech eretz kadma leTorah. Even though there are various interpretations as to what derech eretz means, the simple interpretation is ethics and good manners. That is first and foremost. That comes before Torah, before knowledge of Torah. That's what it means. What good is it if somebody is knowledgeable and behaves like a brat? I'm thinking of a worse description of, not brat is too good, right? What good is it if somebody is very knowledgeable and is a despot, right? And is just not a mensch, not a ben adam. Good manners and ethics come before Torah. Regardless of how knowledgeable it is, the knowledge is not as important if he's not a mensch, as we say in Yiddish, if he's not a ben adam. That comes first. The reason why that comes first is not because that's more important, because that is a foundation for building Torah. A person cannot really absorb Torah if he doesn't have good character. Whatever he learns will be perhaps an intellectual challenge, academic. You have a lot of people who learn Torah and it doesn't impress upon them too much because the foundation is rotten. In order for the Torah to make an impression, a lasting impression, in order for the Torah to actually refine the character of the individual, want him to overcome his weaknesses, it requires a healthy foundation. Now, if the foundation is no good, it doesn't mean that you cannot repair the foundation. Obviously, if one had a terrible upbringing, had some trauma in his life, it may be difficult. The foundation has to be rebuilt. It can be done. But that is a prerequisite to the Torah in a sense. And that is in some ways more important. And number 5, whoever is beloved on earth is beloved by God. Rabbis tell us in Pirkei Avot, Kol mi sheruach habriot nocha imeno, ruach hamakom nocha imeno. For those of you who understand the Hebrew in Pirkei Avot, if someone in this world is really liked, people have good things to say about him, he has an excellent reputation, that is an indication that upstairs they like him too. Again, not for his money. People like him for what he is. They have good things to say about him. He may have certain weaknesses. He may not be perfect. But generally speaking, if people approve of him, people like him, people don't have too many negative things to say about him, that is an indication. It's a mirror image of, and you can actually pretty much tell that that is exactly what they think of him above. And that is a very good positive sign. You want to have a good name down here below, and you want to have a good name upstairs. And if you want to know what they think of you upstairs, you have no idea, then just look around what people think of you. Do you have a good relationship with people? Are you getting along? Or do people have a lot of complaints? Oy vavoy, if people have a lot of complaints about a particular individual, you can be assured that upstairs they're very upset at him too. What's the purpose of pointing this out? Because we're speaking tonight about Leos. Now, admittedly, I put in a little bit of humor to everything that I wrote, and that's necessary because there's a lot of things that some of you who may be Leos may not like. So I did it a little bit of a humorous way, but the point will always be is remember that even though you have certain characteristics, you can still work on them, and after all, you do want to find favor in the eyes of God. You do want to find favors. Hopefully you care about finding favor in the eyes of human beings, Jews or non-Jews. So you want to make an effort to deal with this issue if it is an issue. How many Leos do we have tonight? Oh, Baruch Hashem, only 1 or 2? Okay. Yeah. Leo is a great sign, you should know. Really, you're going to hear a lot of good things about Leo tonight, but there are some weaknesses. There are no good signs and bad signs, but there are some beautiful characteristics that will be found in those that have fire in them. And personally, I'll tell you the truth, I'm envious of some of the qualities that certain fire signs have. Really, they have some great things. I'd love to have their good qualities, but not their bad ones. That's very difficult to have the cake and eat it too, right? So even though many of us are mixed a little bit, the vast majority will definitely have a dominant element, and those who are Leo are going to have the dominant element of fire. And no matter how much of a Leo you are, more or less, typical or not, a lot of what you will hear today will be familiar to you. Yeah.
You look at someone and tell their sign?
Yeah. Many times I could tell the sign because it's very pronounced. You know, depending on the hour, how much of the element is in him. You know, it depends on his age, depending on if he's wearing glasses, depending if I spoke to him. There's, you know, a lot of, you know, some people know how to disguise themselves. But sometimes it's more obvious than others. Yeah. Yeah. Leo is, as you can see, look at the presentation, July 23 to August 22nd, approximately. If you want to know exactly, depends on the location of your birth, which I usually do by computer, to know exactly. What Leos generally have in common, again, they're a fire element, they're generous. They can be very warm-hearted, creative and enthusiastic, very loving. This is all on the positive. On the dark side, on the negative, they can be very bossy and arrogant, interfering with other people's life, very nosy, very dogmatic, and not too tolerant. This is just an approximate description, if you could read it, of what Leo is. We're going to get a little bit more in depth in the various aspects of his life as an individual, as a husband, or as a wife, children, and Leo the boss. Okay, so let's begin to recognize this individual called the Leo, Mazal Aryeh. This Mazal Aryeh, the Leo, is a very proud individual. And as a result of pride comes arrogance. You will see, hopefully with time, as you become more familiar with astrology, that certain characteristics just go together. As I gave you one example, those who are perfectionists and very organized and clean will tend to be nervous and demanding. Certain things go together. Those who are lazy may tend to be sloppy, careless, right? Pride may be good, may not be good, depends. But it leads to arrogance. However, they can be gregarious. Does everybody know what gregarious means? Gregarious, yes? What is? It's a combination of being friendly and outgoing together. Very much a social type. In other words, even though he's here, he's arrogant, but he needs a crowd. Otherwise, who are you going to be arrogant over? Right? Gregarious and with a sunny disposition. That's very good. Some people are very serious, reserved. And this man, he's a happy, social guy. Hates boredom. They have a terrible time with anything that's boring. Prefers bright over dark places in town. 1 o'clock in the morning, you go to Manhattan, to some very, very loud place, 50% of the clients are Leos. Guaranteed. That's where they are. They like lebendige places, action, people. Never a true introvert. Even though he may pretend to be one, sometimes they keep quiet, but they're not introverts. They're very extroverts. And with age, Leos, some of them tend to mellow, but will always feel dignified and important in their eyes. Now this is important to know. We're not just talking to the Leo. This is important for us to know, to realize who we're dealing with. In his eyes, he may feel important. What good is that for us to know? Well, you have to be careful what you say to him, that you don't step on his toes. People react for different reasons. Now, comparing him to the Aries, his speech is not as fast as Aries or Gemini, but his tone is much more commanding. He's much more in charge. You will always easily notice him in a group. He usually takes the center of the stage with dramatic statements and actions. You know what dramatic means? I mean, he moves his hands, makes statements. You can hear him from a mile away sometimes. He may also draw attention to himself by simply being loud. They're very loud. Either laughing out loud, bragging, or just plainly angry. When they're angry, you can hear them angry. Taurus is angry. You may not hear it at all. You may not even know about it. With a Leo, you'll know it. Everything is open, yes. They love to give free advice. Now, this is very curious about them. More than any other sign, I think, maybe Sagittarius too, actually. They love to give free advice. And I'll tell you later why they do that. They will even tell you in a condescending manner how you should manage your life. They'll tell you how they think you should manage your life. This love of teaching others makes many of them educators, politicians, and psychiatrists. They're actually better in helping others smooth out the wrinkles in their life than managing their own affairs. Sometimes they can't manage their own affairs, but they know how to give advice to others. And they're always doing that. Always. He has many excellent abilities that are mixed with a vulnerable ego. Now, even though I'm using a fancy word here, I hope you understand. You know what a vulnerable ego means? This individual has a problem. He has an ego. Remember, we said before, he's proud. And being proud sometimes makes you vulnerable because oy vavoy if somebody hurts their ego. So even though they have great abilities, that is one of his weaknesses. He has a vulnerable ego. He can be deeply wounded if you don't respect his wisdom and generosity. How do you subdue a Leo? You flatter him. This man called a Leo can be easily flattered. He's actually expecting it. He needs it. He wants it. That's the best way to subdue a Leo. What do I mean by subdue? To get him to be on your side. Yeah? Just flatter him. 9 out of 10 times, the compliments you give him will take away his roar. I use that because it's a lion, right? 9 out of 10 times, the flatter will do it. His vanity is his greatest weakness. And the lack of respect can blind him with rage. These extremes of wanting to be flattered and becoming very upset if he's not respected will make it difficult for him to have a balanced judgment. This is sometimes a problem with them because here they're being flattered, here they're upset. It makes it hard for them to make decisions. Now, this is just a suggestion. If he's giving a class or a lecture, or he's giving you a personal speech, his advice, it would be a good idea to tell him, you know what? You have a great sweater. You're looking great. He will blush, and he will actually ask you, really? You really think so? He takes this as a compliment, and he likes that. It was just such a simple statement made. And they take it seriously. They like that. Many of them just cannot help feeling superior in some way. And I gave you an example of a story of a Leo teacher who was very smart, that he would sometimes run around in the class waving his arms, I'm surrounded by idiots. What's going on here? This was a smart guy. But when he got upset, he roared very loud, waved his arms, right? He's dramatic. And he of course looked down at everybody. Everybody's idiots. Typical. This is a Leo. This is not to say that somebody else will not react similarly, but he's the loudest of them all. Leo gets things done better than Aries. Remember, those of you who were here for Aries, a lot of initiative, a lot of drive. They begin to do a lot of things, but they don't finish what they begin. Leo is much better. He's better organized. And his commands, when he's talking to people, if he's the boss, his commands are more effective. The reason why he's more effective with his commands is because he goes straight to the point. He's brief. He's not as dreamy. He doesn't have these grand plans. He's just straightforward. Even though in giving instructions, he can use a lot of drama and theatrics. He's dramatic. But he will go straight to the point and get things done. So he's in this way, in this respect, he's better than Aries. He knows how to give extravagant compliments all the time. He's great at compliments. Just like he loves compliments, he also gives it. And he will show his approval very openly. He's not bashful, however, about his displeasure of something. Whenever he says, whatever he says, he usually means it. Doesn't dress it up like a Gemini trying to sell you something that you don't really need. Remember that, Gemini? Whatever he says, he usually means it. But that's a problem. Why is that a problem when somebody tells you what he really thinks about you? The lack of tact. You sometimes have to be nice, diplomatic. That's a problem. We're going to get to that a little bit later. They very much want a partner. They need to love someone. They need to be loved. So they rarely stay single. However, a relationship with them can sometimes suffer. Many of them, actually I was nice when I wrote the word suffer. I really could have written collapses, falls apart, but I wrote suffers. Many of times their relationships suffer with their spouse or with friends because of their fiery pride. That fiery pride sometimes causes a lot of problems in relationships. What can you do? Not everybody can handle it very well. And Aries has also a very similar problem. Aries doesn't have too many good close friends because of that. Now Leo is much stronger in some respects than Aries. But nevertheless, he can suffer because of his pride. He can be fierce if his pride was injured in a marriage. But the good thing about him is that more than anyone else, I think more than any other mazal, he will adjust courageously from any depressing situation. No matter what happened to him, he can easily recover if he chooses to. He can show a lot of optimism and be very stoic. Does everybody here know the word stoic? In other words, he's not moved. He's not affected. A person who has a harder skin can be stoic about a situation. In other words, his feathers are not ruffled. He can deal with it. He can easily recover. He takes it well. And that's a very good ma'ala. Some signs who don't have his problems but don't have this advantage, or if they ever do fall into a problem. Remember Cancer? For Cancer to recover from a failed relationship, it may never happen in his life. He may never trust anybody anymore. He may have these terrible feelings of whatever it is deep down for the rest of his life. That's no good. Here's a man who has a problem with his pride, but he can recover. That's very good. He's an optimist. Reconciliation with him can happen as frequent as the splits. Breaking up, he can easily break up with someone, or somebody I should say could break up with him, right? But making up with him is also very easy. Why? Because he has it in his spirit forgiveness and sympathy. Some don't. Some will never forgive you. Some will remember what you did to them for the rest of their life. But he can be forgiven if he chooses to. Remember, if he chooses to, he has it in him. He has it in him to forgive and forget. He has the sympathy. He can have compassion. So he has it in him. They prefer to be leaned on and not to lean on others. Oh no, that's terrible. How could he lean on others? That takes away from his pride won't allow that. They feel responsible to help the weak and helpless. He may complain that the whole load is on him. Don't pay attention to whenever he says that. Because if you try to help him, he will disdainfully refuse your help. He says, I don't need your help. You know what a typical Leo saying to somebody who comes to him and offers to help? I don't need your favors. If you ever hear those words, you can suspect that he's a Leo. I don't need your favors. All right, thank you. I'm sorry. But they don't like it. They want to help. Now, is that good or bad? Well, in some ways it's good. They want to be the ones to help. But at least don't react like that. You can be nice. Sometimes it's very funny. But it's the reality of how people are. Coming to cash, money, very important area in life. He's not very cautious with cash. He can become a gambler. Not every sign of the zodiac is a gambler. Not every sign has the tendency. Some are more conservative. Some are more cautious. Right? Remember Cancer, Taurus. Eventually we'll talk about Capricorn and Virgo. Gambling, you won't see them in Las Vegas unless it's putting a quarter and trying their luck in those machines. But this man is a big roller. Big roller. He can gamble, be extravagant, and dress expensively. Why? Because he wants first class and will spend fully on fun and pleasure. As a gambler, he's a high roller, and if it's in public, he may say, the treat is on me. Who says the words, the treat is on me? Actually, there could be various signs to say that. An Aries can also say that sometimes. But Leos typically will say, it's on me, it's on the house. And if he's dating, he will seldom spare any expense because he wants to show off. As a host, he will be very regal, serving superb food, fine wine, and other luxuries. You know, he wants to show off. Now, what comes with that generosity, if you want to call it generosity, I call it extravagance, he will also give money to anyone who needs it. Leo, when it comes to tzedakah, as long as he has money, but even if he doesn't have the money, he might really help. They can be very generous. They will give money. Now, remember, we spoke about the difference between Leo and Pisces and some other signs. There are various signs that will give tzedakah, but for a different reason. One will do it out of compassion, the Pisces. He simply has pity on you. And the Leo simply says, that's the right thing to do. We all got to help. He believes in it. And he wants to show, whatever he wants to show or prove, that he can do it, that he can help. So it comes, the tzedakah or the generosity comes from a different angle than the Pisces. But it's genuine. He's not faking it. He will really give money. He will rarely borrow. He prefers to avoid receiving financial aid. Neither will he seek advice so readily. He doesn't want people's favors. Doesn't want their money. Doesn't want their advice. They have a knack for fixing things themselves. You ask him to fix something, he won't resist. He'll try to make it work. The problem is with the Leo that if it doesn't work after he tried, he'll just give it a kick. Get upset at it and just, give up. Don't do me any favor. Don't try to fix it if you can. But they really can sometimes fix if they put their minds to it. They're very good at it. But they get very upset when things don't work out for them. Now, here's another weakness that they have. They enjoy gossip. They're one of the ones, besides Geminis, and some other signs that we'll talk about another time, that they enjoy gossip. Now, people enjoy gossip for different reasons. He doesn't want to be left out. Very similar to Aries. They want to know everything that's going on. Perhaps you're talking behind his back. Perhaps you're plotting against him. The gossip here is not just for fun. This gossip is because they want to be in control. They want to know everything. Everything that is being said. By the way, Napoleon was a Leo. So you will see there's a lot of the characteristics that we're talking about, if you knew or read about Napoleon, you will see it in him. They don't want to be left out. They're usually fixed in their nature, much fixed in Aries, and they're hard to sway from their path. They're not stubborn, like Taurus or Capricorn or Cancer. They're simply hard to sway because they don't want to lose control. And they don't take advice. So how are you going to change their minds so easily? But they're not stubborn. They know, however, how to sway others. You can't sway them easily, but they can sway you. When it comes to friendship, he can be a loyal friend. Can be. But he could also be a powerful enemy. Ooh. Obviously, if he doesn't like you, he'll let you know. But the good thing about him? He's not two-faced. You'll know it that he doesn't like you. That's very good. As David HaMelech says, Hashem, help me with my friends. I'll take care of my enemies myself. The ones who claim they are my friends, I don't know for sure if they're my friends. They're the ones we have to be careful with. But he'll let you know. You'll know it. Because they are so wrapped up in themselves, he will not be too sensitive to the feelings of others and will be brutally frank and untactful. Remember I said before that the problem with tact, this is where you will see it. When it comes to sensitivity for the feelings of others. Generous and kind, yes. But being sensitive, no. They're too open, they're too frank, they're not tactful, and they will hurt people's feelings very easily. They're not the sensitive type. Sensitivity has nothing to do with being kind and generous and compassionate. Everybody here understands, you're following you know what sensitivity means? That you're really careful. You don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. We're talking about feelings, and feelings is water. Water signs, water element has to do with feelings, with moods, with sensitivity. Compassion can be fire too. Compassion, generosity is fire too. It's mostly fire actually. But to be sensitive, you actually have to walk. How could somebody who's proud and arrogant be sensitive? You see, it doesn't just go together. So they're not very sensitive. They are very good in emergencies. They make good generals. Because when it comes to a crisis, they will handle it very well, very lightly. They will never shirk their duty, their responsibility. He will help the defenseless and protect the frightened, even if he's frightened himself. He won't show it. He's too proud to show that he's afraid. But he will help others in need. He will cheer them up, cheer up the ones who are melancholy, and tackle the problems with courage. He's creative, original, and strong, whether he's quiet or flamboyant. But most Leos are the flamboyant type. The reason I wrote whether quiet or flamboyant, because you will see sometimes an individual who's a Leo, and he's not so loud. He's quiet, minding his own business, but deep down, he's proud, confident, generous. He has everything, but he's just a quiet type, especially if he's older and mellowed out, as we said before. But the typical one, very flamboyant. But when it comes to difficult situations, emergencies, they're very good. Excellent in dealing with an emergency. Okay, now let's take apart the man and see the differences between the man and the woman. As I've pointed out before, there's a lot of similarities. I've just separated the two, especially for those of you who are singles and thinking perhaps of dating a Leo. You've got to be careful. Okay? In case you're going to date a Leo, this is what you should be aware of. Once you're married to him, you belong to him. What does that mean, you belong to him? You're not a piece of furniture. But he will tell you what to wear, how to part your hair, how to organize your day better. He will want to know where you've gone for so long. You told him you're going to be back in an hour and you were gone for 2 hours. Who did you speak to and what did they say? This is very typical of a Leo. He will be very much involved in everything you do. Some people will call it controlling. This is not control freak. He's not a control freak so much. He simply feels you belong to him. And he needs to know everything. Because if you did something wrong, remember, he wants to teach you. He wants to advise you. So there's a lot of reasons here why the Leo wants to know everything. It's not so much to control. He's not a controlling type. I mean, he wants to have control, but not that he wants to control you and subdue you. He simply wants to be involved in everything. He wants to make sure everything is tip-top. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's too much. He will go for you if you adore him, flatter him, and respect him. You wanted to propose after the 3rd date? That's what you should do. He will be kind and good-hearted if he gets respect. If he gets respect, he will behave himself. He will take you out to the best restaurants, even if it costs him $150 for prime rib. And wine, he'll do that, whether he's dating or even later in life. That, they're very good. They'll take you out to the best restaurants. He doesn't care about spending, remember? And he will shower you with flowers and perfume. He's very dramatic. He will basically demonstrate it with his hands, no matter whatever way he can, that he means it. He's serious about you. You may be told repeatedly, maybe 10 times a day sometimes, how lovely you look. And he may want to show you off to his friends. Now, I'm being very general here. Obviously, if we're talking about people who are religious, Jewish, some of this is not very relevant. But it's still there in the subconscious mind of the Leo. He would love to do it if he could. He has an impulsive temper if he's aroused. He's an impulsive. Remember fire. Fire people are impulsive. And he may blow steam, but there's no malice. Malice means that he's not evil. He just blows a lot of steam, gets angry, a lot of noise, a lot of, fanfare, just a lot of noise, very loud, but there's no malice. He's not malicious. Will not tolerate the competition from an outside interest. He comes first before your job. Even though you have a job you have to attend to, he will feel that he comes first. Now, obviously, if he's a mensch, if he's a good person and he's understanding, then he will give in, then he will, all right. But if he's not, he will basically insist on being first. Either careless and sloppy or very neat and orderly. In other words, you will find two types of Leos. Either they're just sloppy and careless, or they're very neat and very orderly. And they like expensive clothes, expensive suits, expensive shirts. I'm sure salespeople love Leos. They come and they pay the price unless they're from Iran. Then they will handle with you. Give it to me for this, for less, but otherwise, they'll pay, right? Keep him away from auctions. You know what he will do in an auction? He has an irresistible urge to bid higher than anybody else. That's their pride that they want to show off. Now, if you ever threaten to leave him, he's capable of faking that he's getting a heart attack. Very typical of Leo, because how could you hurt his pride? So he will do whatever he can, even fake it. Can have instant passion about something, about you, about anything, and enthusiasm. And will very much lead an active and social life. Leos usually are very active, and as we said in the very beginning, they're very social, they're extroverts. As fathers, they are warm, sometimes too permissive with their kids, but they will insist on respect. Respect is very important to them. Children need to respect a father who's a Leo, otherwise it's terrible. If a Leo father is not respected, then the child will not have a good relationship with that father. And that's a problem for the Leo. The Leo has to be understanding that some children simply do not know what it means to respect a father. They don't realize that the father means their well-being. It could be that this kid has some problem, needs some outside help. You can't just mistreat him. You can't just look down at him. You have to be very careful. As a Leo father, you have to be extremely careful that even though you demand respect, which is coming to you, that you don't insist on it too much. That is not the way of maintaining a good relationship, because if a Leo loses a child when he's a youngster, that child, when he grows up, will not want to see his father anymore. And that would be very, very sad if the elderly, the parents, father and mother, are not visited by their children. A lot has to do with what you did and what you invested when you were young. So as a Leo, you have the generosity, you have the warmth. You can be very kind, forgiving, and compassionate. You need to use those midot, those characteristics, to reach out to children too. Even though you're demanding of respect and you're not getting any of this burden, you're burning your pride. He's not listening to me. Be very careful, because that can destroy a relationship. You may be the only link to that child, because that child may not have anybody else in his life. And you may be the only link. And if you destroy that link, then that child is an orphan, a living orphan. And that would be a shame. So Leo has to be very careful, especially with those who are his children, those who he truly deep down loves, that he should show them that he loves them. Has an enormous need to command and to be loved. He's usually faithful. Usually they're faithful. If you don't mind submerging your ego, you will always be adored. Talking about a woman, if you don't mind letting go of your ego, you will always be adored. And the last point that I wrote here is, if you want to snare him, you know what to snare means? If you want to catch him, you really want him to be yours, you really want to convince him, just be his audience. He needs an audience. He needs people that will adore him, that will compliment him, that will listen to him. You really want to snare him, you really want him to be yours forever, just be his audience. Not everybody can be the audience for a Leo, obviously. And that's why not everybody marries a Leo or stays married to a Leo. But this is what really speaks to him. This is what he really likes. And if you have that, if you're a Gemini, you usually will have no problem with the Leo. Geminis get along great with Leos. I think they're one of the best matches. There's other signs too, in case you want to know some other time. Yeah. Okay, Leo woman. You may see a lot of ideas that we spoke about before, but just to group it here for a woman, Leos are popular. Not just a woman, but a Leo woman will be very popular. She may be the social leader of her group. In the class, in any organization, they tend to be very popular. They tend to be the leaders. They tend to be the ones in charge. This Leo woman has lots of vivacity. Vivacity is, full of life, grace, and warmth. Has an outgoing personality and makes for a good hostess. She wants to demonstrate. She wants to show. Remember, Geminis can also be a good hostess. That's because they're just capable of doing a lot of things, and they take it very easily. They don't mind the hard work. Leo looks at it differently. Oh, this is a great opportunity to show off the home, to show off something else, or whatever, or to be kind. Dresses very well, and I use a Yiddish word here, that you will not find a Leo woman who's schlumpish. You know what a schlump is? A schlump is one who does not take care of themselves. You will not find a Leo woman with the curlers on her hair in front of other people. She will look much more pedant. She will look much more taking care of herself. She wants to look good. Strong and capable, and will not want to be confined to the house. Usually Leos will tend to go out, work, or do something. A lot of them are actually involved in sports. Men, women. They like the outside. They're extroverts, so you can't confine them to the house. You want a housewife, just a housewife, somebody to take care of your home? It's probably not going to be a Leo. You may want to have a Taurus. You may want to have a Virgo. But even Virgos, they like to serve and teach and do certain things. Not everybody likes to be confined to a home. Cancer women can be at home. Certain signs are more better at home than others. Now, be careful when you take her out, a Leo woman. Don't take her out for hamburgers and French fries. She expects something much more glamorous. I remember before we talked about fine wine. Remember the Leo man, what he does? Well, same thing with the woman. Now, you're going to take a Leo woman for hamburgers and French fries. No, it's not going to work. She's going to cancel the date. This is not for me. I assure you that you won't have a second date with her. It has to be glamorous. Be prepared to buy her gifts and give her compliments. Compliments, just like the man. She needs it. And gifts. And don't expect to tame her. The reason I'm using the word tame, like to tame a lion, to tame an animal, you can't tame a Leo. It's very difficult. They're just going to always be like that. Very proud, confident of themselves, fiery, loud, extrovert. It's hard to tame them. So don't try to change them. We'll spend time in front of the mirror and a fortune on cosmetics in the beauty parlor. So get ready if you're married to Leo. Lots will go into how she looks, cosmetics, everything. And if you're going out with her to a wedding or to some banquet, she's going to spend more time at that in front of that mirror than the average woman. That's just the way it is. I mean, they very much, the looks are very important to them, the way they dress. Watch her charge account. That's very important. If you give her your credit card, you got to watch it because they're going to easily go overboard. Whether it's things for their home or buying for their friends, they can easily go. They're not careful with cash, with money. That's not one of their strengths. You want somebody who's more careful with the money? Taurus, Capricorn, Cancer. They're much more careful with their money. Sometimes too careful. This one is not careful at all. I'm not sure who's less careful, an Aries or a Leo, when it comes to money. They're both no good when it comes to money. Just that Aries doesn't know what's flying. A Leo knows a little bit what's flying, but they're simply so into buying, and they need to have the best and luxury that they just won't mind spending it. Aries just doesn't know what's flying. When it comes to being kind, obviously, with others or with their children, they're very kind. They're the kindest. Actually, they're one of the kindest of all. Very generous with their children and with those who are helpless. However, as a mother, she may be very chummy. Does everybody know what the word chummy, like friendly, with their children? And because of that, when you're too chummy, you don't see their faults. So a Leo woman, Leo mother, may not see their faults so much. She will, of course, demand obedience and respect, just like the man demands obedience, so will she. And she will be strict with manners. That's things that she can identify with. Certain strictness, demand respect and obedience. That, yeah, but everything else, they may overlook a lot of their faults of their kids because, you know, their friendly manner, being chummy. A Leo woman and a man, but especially a woman, they need a lot of appreciation because she's a woman. The women have their sensitivities, their nature. And then last but not least, the key to a smooth relationship with her is don't ever try to top her. You know, to boss her around, to be on top of her, to aggrandize yourself. Always be, you know, somewhat humble. A lot of them will want to take charge and wear the pants in the house. And as long as you don't take over too much control and boss her around, you should be able to have a smooth relationship with a Leo woman. Advice for Leo children. Now today, as opposed to the past few weeks, when it comes to to the children and the boss, I had so much to write that I had to write a separate page or frame for each one instead of putting them all together. Leo children are a handful, but in a good way. They are very happy and very playful. As long as they get their way. They can be very, very loud and create a storm if they don't get their way. But otherwise, they're very happy and very playful kids. They may be the most reckless of all because they have so much action. So they're so active. They may be much more reckless than other children. They may need more spending money. If you give them an allowance, remember they spend, so they may need more. Now be careful with Leos not to suppress them. Here they have a lot of enthusiasm. They're very excited. You don't want to suppress that. You will want to allow to develop. He has a habit of bossing others around. Rabbis tell us you can tell a lot about a person from when he's a child. A lot. You can really, after he's 1 year old, you can already see certain signs. You will see the bossiness of a Leo when he's a child. Now when it comes to bossiness is not a good midah. Now that's something that you want to teach him about. Be fair. Don't boss, don't tell everybody what to do. Be fair with everybody. Give everybody a chance. That's something a Leo child needs to be taught. He has a strong urge to show off. And with that, you also want to give him a lesson that it's not dignified. Now he wants to be dignified, right? So, to show off doesn't look right. Now you want to look good, don't you? So this doesn't look good. This has to be told to an adult too. But it's better to start when they're children, when they're young. Because they have this urge to show off. That's just their pride. And there's nothing that you can do about it unless you're really going to show them that this is, and convince them that this is not dignified. He may ask others to get him something. Get me this, get me that, get me that. Don't give in to him. Make him understand no one is his servant and let him fetch it himself. Don't get him used to telling others what to do because he has that tendency to boss everybody around and to ask everybody to do what he wants. You take care of this, you take care of that for me. You did this for me. No, go ahead and you do it yourself. Nobody's your servant. Do it in a nice way, of course, in a refined way. That's the way he's going to learn, that he can't just tell people what to do. You restrain him gently, and don't scold him harshly, and especially don't do it in public. I added the words in public. That's very, very important. One has to be very careful not to scold. You know what to scold means? Not to yell, not to criticize. A Leo, especially in public, oy vavoy, I mean, his pride in front of people, he's being scolded by his parents, that's going to be too embarrassing. That's going to be too painful. So don't do it in public, and don't do it too harshly. Do it very gently. But he needs to be scolded. He is the type that needs to be scolded. The Cancer, Cancer has fears. Remember Cancer? He has certain fears and insecurities. He needs a big hug. Leo doesn't need so much the hug. You look great today. You're smart. You know, speak nice to him. Of course, give him compliments. He doesn't need so much the hug like the Cancer does. And he needs the scolding much more than some of the other signs because he wants to be a big shot. He wants to tell everybody what to do. These are serious weaknesses. But you want to encourage his leadership qualities and build his courage. That's something that is a great strength. You want to build. You know what? You can do it. You're capable of it. You take charge. You do this. Give him responsibilities. He will like to be given responsibilities as long as they're not menial tasks. Does everybody know what the menial task is? Go take out the garbage. No, that's not for me. To take out the garbage is a menial task, right? A Virgo will take out the garbage because a Virgo will do almost anything, right? They're clean. Garbage, of course. The garbage is not going to stay in the house. The dishes are not going to stay in the sink. For a Virgo, dishes in the sink overnight. A real Virgo, no way, right? So a Virgo will do these kind of things. So you can ask a Virgo. Don't ask a Leo to do a menial task. But if you give him responsibility, you drive the car today, right? There, responsibility, all that. That's great. So these things can be developed when they're still young. That kind of responsibility he will enjoy. Advice for Leo boss. Remember, they're arrogant. They can be. Some more, some less. But arrogance is a problem with Leo. However, they're also good-natured and optimists. They won't be depressed. You know, there are some people who are more depressing, serious, don't talk a lot. This man will talk. This man is good-natured and optimist, but arrogant. You know, actually, I didn't write everything. I can tell you more. If you go to a Leo's office, a real Leo's office, it will be very decorated. Plush sofa, the most expensive chair, Persian rugs from Isfahan, right? Or Tabriz. Which one is more expensive? Whatever. Yeah, the most, the best. Depends if he's Iranian or not, right? Everything expensive. His picture on the wall, and guess who is in the picture? The President of the United States, of course. Him with the President. Typical Leo. Not just one picture, probably several. All his, everything in a frame. His PhD, his MD, or whatever, everything in a frame. This is Leo, a Leo office. Guaranteed. Every Leo office has that. Guaranteed. Now, this is a problem. Number two is a real big problem. Leos have it, unfortunately, more than any other sign. This is terrible. This is so sad. He will take credit for your ideas. He will compliment you. And let me tell you a story. There was once a Leo that came over to the secretary. She happened to be a Virgo, of course. So he says, you know what? Put together a letter for me. You know, what do you want me to write? He says, just write that I agree, and you fill in the rest for me. He just said 2 words, and he expected his secretary to write a beautiful letter of why he agrees and everything. But basically, he said, I'll go along with that idea, and you fill in the rest. Okay. In the meantime, he went to lunch for 2 hours with friends, of course. Expensive restaurant. Went for 2 rounds of golf. Right? Then came back. The letter was ready. Was impressed. Calls up his associate and tells him, you know, it's incredible. My mother used to tell me that I'm a good writer. You know, let me share with you this letter. Starts quoting the letter. Says, you know what, my mother was right. This is not a letter that you wrote. This is a letter your secretary wrote. But he's taking all the credit for himself. You know, my mother was right. You know, this is a good letter. Yeah. I could be a writer. She wrote the letter. She all the hard work. He will compliment her, perhaps. That he will do. But he will take all the credit for himself, and he will show off to others. He wrote incredible. He can't be bothered and bored with details. He'll give it to somebody else. You take care of it. You put it together. He'll give you a stack of letters. You read it. I don't have the time for this. Very similar to the Aries. He may make disapproving comments about how sloppy your desk is. Oh, they're very good in telling you off about what you did wrong. And he will forget and not consider the fact that you worked over time last night. Came home late, woke up early. What does he expect of you? Now, that he disregards. He'll just point out that, you know, here, sloppy desk. What do you have a sloppy desk? He'll point it out and he will say it out loud so everybody can hear it. Now, he will compliment you too. But who wants a compliment of somebody that is so insensitive? He has both. He's open. He tells you what he thinks about you. With a Leo, more than any other sign, he will want his workers to be yes men to his ideas. Have you ever heard the expression, a yes man? This is a Leo with his employees. You've got to be a yes man with him. If you have to say no, for whatever reason, then you have to sandwich it with compliments. You know what? That's a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? Well, of course, I thought of that, not you. But anyway, That's a great idea, boss. But you know what? I thought about it. Perhaps we could do it a little bit differently. After all, you know what? Your wife, said this and mentioned that. Sandwich your no with compliments. Don't go straight to the point. He won't like it. Don't hold secrets from him. He must know everything that is going on. Remember that? He has to know everything. Now, this is also very strange, but Leos can be very nosy about your personal life. And this is what I told you before. Now I'm going to tell you why. Why is he so nosy about your personal life? He will tell you how to run your life. And what he's telling you is he likes you. That's why he's nosy. He likes me, that's why he's nosy? Yeah, because he wants to share his wisdom and protect you from everything that is going wrong in your life. So that's what he wants to know. Not that he's curious. He's not the curious type. He simply wants to be involved, know everything, and share his wisdom, which he has always a lot of, with you, on how you should change your life and run your affairs. If treated right, he's very, very kind. No problem whatsoever. But ladies and gentlemen, if you are sensitive, you want to work somewhere else. If you're the sensitive type, you want to work somewhere else. Just as a final point about Leos and about any other sign, as we can see, everyone has many strengths. Leo has a tremendous amount of strength. He's a very capable man, a lot of energy, full of drive, warmth, a lot of good midot. And he has some things that he has to work on. And maybe let's go real quickly through the ones that he has to work on, so you can have an idea, just like we've been doing before. There will be certain midot, certain characteristics that all of us need to work on. And he's not an exception. We haven't gotten to Muslim yet. Gava, the midah of arrogance, does he have to work on that? Of course, that's number one. Anava, humbleness, he has to develop. Busha, shame, to be a little bit more bashful, more shy. Yes, definitely. Azut, is he very aggressive? Can be, sure. Ahava, he's usually generous and loving. I don't think he has a problem with loving and being kind. Sin'ah, hatred, he's not the type to hate. He will forget and forgive. Rachamim, compassion, he usually has for those who are helpless. Akhzaryut, cruelty, he's not the cruel type. Simcha, he's full of life. He's not usually depressed or sad. Daga, he doesn't worry so much like the cancer. Harata, regret, which goes with forgiving and forgetting. He's pretty good about that. Harata, however, can also be used with debts. Will he forget his debts? Some signs, forget they owe you money. Usually he's okay, but remember when it comes to money, he's not as cautious. So he may forget. Ka'as, anger. Any fire sign has to work on anger because they're very impulsive. Even though they're quick to calm down, they have to be careful not to get upset at just anything. Ratzon means to appease. You can reconciliate with him easily. He will be appeased. That's good. Kin'a, is he jealous? Not really. Zrizut, is he diligent? Yes, he's pretty diligent. He's not lazy. Zehirut, is he cautious? Not so much. Sometimes he's not as cautious. He's more cautious than the Aries, but he's not cautious he can step on somebody's toes. So he needs to be a little more cautious. Aslut, he's not so lazy, but the Leo, as opposed to an Aries, can be indolent. You know what indolence means? When he wants to play and when he wants to rest, that's what he'll do. He won't want to be bothered. They can work very hard, but they can be very indolent and lazy and take it easy too. But he's not the lazy type. Nedivut, being kind and generous, he's fine. Tsakanut, he's not stingy. Schira, remembering people's insults, doesn't last forever usually. Unless his pride was hurt, that will be a problem, Zechira. Shichecha, to forget. He can easily forget if he chooses to forgive and forget. Shtika, to be silent. He has a problem because he's loud. He has a problem keeping quiet, keeping his mouth shut, so he has to work on shetika. Sometimes that's the best thing to do, is to just be quiet. If you talk, you might make a mistake and say the wrong thing. Sheket, does he lie? He doesn't really lie, but he brags. Emet, is he truthful? Not as some of the other signs. He can exaggerate, take credit for himself, so he has to work on emet. Did you do it? No, my secretary did it. No, So why did you say so? So he may need to work on emet. Hanifut, flattery, big problem. Flatters others, likes to be flattered. And hanifut is tied with sheker. It's untrue. It's not true. There's very few times you're allowed to flatter and make somebody feel good. Doesn't mean that you should use it everywhere. You want to be sincere. Sincerity is the opposite of flattery. Lashon hara, he has a problem. Remember the gossip? He's the king of gossipers, almost. There's some others who can share that title with him. Gossip, he needs to know everything, so he will talk about it and want to find out. So don't talk to Leo if he wants to know Lashon hara, he wants to know the gossip. Teshuvah, repenting, he has a problem admitting that he made a mistake. It's pride. Anybody who has pride will have a problem with teshuvah. Teshuvah will be very difficult for a Leo. Torah requires constancy. To learn Torah requires patience. You may have a problem with that too. Not as much as an Aries who rushes through things. Yirat Shamayim also will be maybe a problem. Yirat Shamayim means to fear God. You mean there's a boss over me? He thought he was the boss, but now they're telling him, no, there's a boss over you. And you got to wear that kippah to cover your head to show that you will have respect for him. What do you mean? Everybody's supposed to respect me, right? No. So Yirat Shamayim may be a problem. Savlanut, patience, needs to learn a little bit of patience. Ta'avot, the only ta'avot that he has is the following one. Kavod, the pursuit of honor. He wants the honor and the respect. But actually, I should correct that. He may have ta'avot for the fine things in life too. Expensive wines, right? The luxuries. So that's all ta'avot. He's not indulgent so much, but he wants to show off and wants the best. Nekama. Nekama is revenge. Is he revengeful? Not so much. Dikaon, is he depressed? Also not. Letzanut, is he a clown? He can be. He can clown around. He can make a big scene, very dramatic. And obviously when a person does that, that means he's lacking a little bit in seriousness. But there's a good side to that. You know, sometimes you want to be happy. You want to make people happy. But you have to watch it. Life is serious business. You don't want to clown around too much. Just like everybody else, he has his strengths, he has his weaknesses, but as I've said all along, it is important for us to remember that if Hashem gave us a commandment, Hashem tzivah, that means he gave us the ability and the strength to deal with that commandment. If we have a certain tendency, an inclination, or a certain weakness that we were born with, that means he gave us the ability to overcome it. The only thing that we really, really need is the direction. The direction is in the Torah. If a person learns Torah and he's willing to make a change in his life, and obviously if he's in a positive environment with the right friends, then he will succeed, B'ezrat Hashem. And as I pointed out last week, whoever is serious about making a change in his life, in his relationship with his wife and with his kids, B'ezrat Hashem will receive assistance min hashamayim. Thank you very much.